Hi there, Doug Milburn, founder and president of 45 Drives, here today with Mitch Hall, chief storage architect and generally fun guy when we're talking about geeky stuff especially, right?
Well, I appreciate that, Doug.
Yep, it's a compliment, it's a huge compliment. We are here today to show you our new HL15 HomeLab server. So what we wanted to do today was to show you a little bit about how it performs. So when we sell these things, as we talked about and so many of you know, enterprise heritage, right? Our 45 Drives direct wired architecture. These things are built for speed, capacity, reliability. There's a direct lane from all 15 hard drives in this thing straight through to the motherboard. And it's capable of some really extreme performance. Now, why do the video? People are going to get these things and they're going to go, okay, great. Now I want to see all this really amazing stuff happening. And a whole bunch of it will happen out of the box, but you got to be aware that software and network are not all the way up to where this hardware is. And but if you know what you're doing and you want to tweak a little bit and tune a little bit, you can make this thing do truly amazing stuff that you will just have a blast doing. So we're going to show you a little bit of that. We can talk about it. We're going to actually show it. That's why Mitch is here. Bring somebody who knows what they're talking about. And so what we're going to do, we're going to show you, talk a little bit about a setup, show you how to do fast file transferring, and then we're going to go one step farther and show you how to do something really cool, which is video editing direct from network at a speed that well exceeds using an internal SATA SSD. And it's really, really cool. So Mitch, let's go and tell me what we have here. Let's start off on our server.
Absolutely. So, like you said, we've got our HL15 here, which is, like you said, big, strong, fast. It's in our DNA. So people would think maybe, would you cut corners for it? But like you said, it's all single path right back to the motherboard. We're not cutting any of that out. So we've got a 6-core Xeon in there. We've got a 16 gigabytes of RAM stocked by default. Now, of course, you could upgrade that and add more if you want. We've got 10 gigabit networking on board, 2 of those ports. So you can actually bond those and get 20 gigabits of bandwidth. And yeah, obviously 15 bays for you to put all your hard drives in.
So you're just talking about his stuff, and I think about 15 hard drives that are all set up to use in parallel. Yep. We'll talk about all the numbers and speed in that a little bit. We just got the network, and you said you have 20 gigabits, which is over 2 gigabytes per second of transfer speed there. Yep. Not going to do much for most home setups, is it?
Exactly. Most home labs are probably not going to have our next piece here, which is the 10 gigabit networking. I mean, some enthusiasts certainly will, but it might be very much overkill for others. But you're going to want to get one of these.
What's these? What is this?
So this is a Netgear 8-port 10 gigabit switch. And you can pull one of these off Amazon for around $500-600 usually.
Unmanaged.
Unmanaged switch, exactly. Yeah. I mean, obviously you can go very balls to the wall crazy with these, but this is a great home lab choice, I think.
And what's the cost again?
$500-600.
$600,
yep.
8 ports.
8 ports. And you could go down to like 4 ports, if you don't need all that ports, to shave off a little bit of money as well. So
it's a little more than your $50 you can get for 1 gigabit, but
exactly.
But it's a lot more. Yeah, I'm going to show you what it does.
Yeah, and I mean, this server is going to be very much bottlenecked by 1 gigabit, but hey, you may not need it. You just need the dense storage, but there's going to be people out there that are really going to want the full speed out of this thing.
Speed, you want to do that, yeah. And you can pull your 2 connections onto this and bond stuff.
You get your redundancy and even additional bandwidth out of it, and we'll show off some really cool performance as well.
Okay, and I've got a client machine here. What's the client machine?
So nothing spectacular, nothing out of this world, just a standard workstation in here. It actually has the same CPU I have at home. That's the 12900K. Now it is a very nice CPU, mind you, but not anything unachievable. A lot of people in their home, if they are enthusiasts or video editors, they'll have CPUs very, very similar. 32 gigs of RAM in there as well. And then of course, 10 gigabit networking on the client as well. And Windows Pro, I believe.
Okay, it's Windows Pro. And yeah, and I'm going to give, when you see this, we're going to give some credit to Windows. People like to beat them up, so do I. Sometimes they frustrate me. But it's pretty cool what Windows can do out of the box, isn't it? As a client end of this.
Yeah, you connect a 10 gigabit port in there, make sure you can talk to the server, and there's really not much you have to do to tune on the Windows side. Make sure your driver is up to date maybe, but other than that, it's pretty good out of the box, and you're going to be able to get those 10 gigabits of throughput into your client.
So we're going to show you speed, and right now let's talk about speed a little bit. And we have a little table we put together for you. Yep. And thinking about when we think about data transfer, you have certain bottlenecks. Your network is a bottleneck, but your storage devices are the ultimate bottleneck. You're never going to move data in or out of a storage server faster than your, other than the caching, the temporary relief the cache gives you. Yep. So we have mechanical hard drives, and people go, oh, sleepy, and not really.
Not really, especially when you're aggregating so many of them like this. And even on its own, I mean, 200 megabytes a second out of a single HDD, like you said, that's double a 1 gigabit network. So yeah, I don't think there's anything that's going away with hard drives for a very long time. But yeah, you put 15 of them in a server and RAID them together, and you're going to get some really fast performance.
Interestingly, my office machine, on occasion, we talk about data transfer. I'll go back to my office machine and move a big file, and I'll get like 40 megabytes a second. And or it could be doing 100.
Yeah, it'll be 40 to 90.
But it's all the overhead.
Exactly. We've got so many clients on the network.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's their network, some, but I don't know what it is. We've never worked on, never bothered, because I'm not that important what I do on my computer, so it really doesn't matter that much. But if you look at it, your 1 gigabit network gives you half what a mechanical hard drive can deliver.
Exactly.
Here you got 15 that you can use in parallel.
Yep.
So we could get up to 3,000 megabytes per second, 3 gigabytes per second from the devices, parallel onto our motherboard. So that's pretty cool. So realizing that network bottleneck, storage device is 200. Another one, internal SATA SSD. Yep. What kind of internal transfer speeds can I get out of that? Like typical run-of-the-mill.
Regular, not super expensive SATA. You're really being bottlenecked by SATA 3 at this point, right? And you're going to be in the realm of 450 to 500 megabytes a second, not a whole lot more than that. So that's pretty much the going standard for a SATA SSD.
So from a data, this is a large file size, large block discussion that we're doing today, and there's a whole different one on IOPS and random access speed. But when we talk about that, internal SATA SSD is like ballpark, we'd say 2.5 times what a mechanical hard drive is.
That's right.
So mechanical hard drive is incredibly respectable for large files.
Exactly, very much so.
And when you get to small files and small block, caching really.
Actually, great point. We're going to show off some video editing here at the end of this video, and we actually have an NVMe in here as well, which we didn't expect to show, but I wanted to show it because you can see after we load the HDD array into Adobe, it's going to perform very similar to an NVMe, and that's because ZFS is so great at caching. So from a user's perspective, you're using all spinners, but it performs like an NVMe. It's fantastic, and we'll show that off.
So as we get into speed, so what's going to be really cool about this, we're going to show you, so what we have right now, and I don't know if it's apparent in the camera, but there are 2 cables coming here, one from the server, one to the client. That's all we got intentionally stripped down. That's all we have in this. That's all that's moving through here. So the maximum we could get through that at 8 bits coming down a pipe, that 10 gigabit pipe, would be 1,250 megabytes per second. When you do that.
There's your theoretical maximum that you're going to get.
And then we got some overhead packet, overhead and whatever else. And so 1250 is the absolute maximum. And so we got this rigged up, got some large files kicking around. We have benchmarking on here. Why don't you show us some stuff? For starters, why don't we just do good old Windows file manager, file transfer in here.
Just a good old drag and drop.
Mitch, just do a drag and drop and pull me a file down from here to there.
So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to kick off our screen capture here so Chris, our cameraman, doesn't kill me. All right, so we're recording here. So as you can see on the screen, we were running some benchmarks, right? We've got a nice crystal disk mark here and a Blackmagic. We'll show those off later. But first, like you said, let's pull some data down. I've got 2 10 gigabyte files here on my Samba share that's coming off of our HL15. And let's just drag and drop those guys over and see what we get.
Good old-fashioned Windows. Look at that. What's that say up there?
So
Speed.
1.1 gigabytes per second. So as you said, there's that little bit of overhead that comes with 10 gigabit, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. We're able to saturate that 10 gigabit for 20 gigs. So that's not caching. That's throughput right there in a nutshell.
Which and again, hats off to Windows, because I haven't played with that myself. I know you guys do it all the time. I know you love tuning.
That's right.
One of your favorite sports.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite sports, exactly.
But it's pretty cool that out of the box, that Windows client
is able to just be so well, right? And you mentioned tuning, so I guess a little bit about what we do tuning on this side, right? Because there is a little bit, but when you look at the grand scheme of things, right, your OS tuning, your network tuning, your Samba tuning, your ZFS tuning, you're gonna get 90, maybe even 95% of the way, dare I say, with a few tiny little tweaks. Now, if you're the guy that wants to put nitrous in his car and break that quarter-mile record, there's a lot of other things that we can do as well to really get there, but 90% of that stuff is gonna come by very, very simple, easy to do tweaks.
Yeah. Cool. Let's go the other way. So what's happening there? We got 15 hard drives coming out here, direct wired, parallel, Rocky Linux, good CPU, and coming through an unmanaged switch into Windows, pretty stock. And we're coming darn near saturating that 10 gigabit connection. That's pretty cool. Let's go the other way. And we're going to come off of our internal, this will be all Windows limited, what Windows can push.
You got it.
So why don't you transfer that file back the other way, Mitch? Let's see what happens.
We'll see what we get. So I'll delete them on the Samba side. And let's get them moved over. I'm going to anticipate about 800, 850, and that's looks like that's where we're getting, about 850 megabytes a second for a single thread, which is pretty good.
And again, that's coming off the NVMe in there.
Coming off the NVMe locally over to our array on the ZFS side. Yeah, so pretty darn good, I think.
And then, yeah, it's pretty darn good. And again, we're into Windows, it's Windows Pro, not designed to file serving. I think it's doing phenomenally well.
Absolutely.
And whereas we could show, actually, we got some work going on. We can't wait to do the video on this, on comparing Windows to actually Windows Server
as well.
to Linux.
Yeah.
And
That's gonna be
yes,
fun.
that project. That's going to be a fun project to show you. And Windows somewhat brain damaged on
storage.
on RAID.
Yeah, exactly.
It's on RAID. It's coming, and they're doing all right. That's why I say I give them credit. They managed to not mess up the internal NVMe.
Yeah, exactly. And File Explorer 2 is a bit of a bottleneck, very single-threaded. There's a tool called RoboCopy on Windows, which is a little higher threaded. So if you transferred a bunch of files through there, you'll actually probably see quite a nice uplift in performance as well. So there's some tricks that you can do as well.
But still, you're doing 800, and it's
good.
Faster than your internal SATA SSD, which is really, really cool. So yeah, let's do some benchmarking. So we do some benchmarking and some smarter file transfer.
That's right.
So what are you going to do?
Absolutely. So Crystal Disk Mark is very, very common in Windows. It's probably the most common benchmark you'll see. Obviously, if you're a sysadmin and you want to go in depth, there's some other tools, but it's a great tool just to give you an idea on how your array is performing at a very, very fast, quick level.
Okay, well, why don't you give her a start?
Yep, so we can hit all here, and what it's going to do is it's going to create a 4 gigabyte file. And then what it'll do is it will run a series of different read tests. Once all the read tests are done, then it will start all its write tests. So this will run probably about a minute, maybe 2 minutes before we get all the numbers. But also we can see in the background, we can see our 10 gigabit is actually pretty much saturated right now already.
Look at that, 9.4, 9.9 gigabytes per second.
So we can see this isn't caching, right? This is definitely all network traffic. And the really cool thing about the HomeLab 15.2 is because we're using ZFS, we can really tune for any workload very, very easily. And it's not like, oh, my array has to be just built for this. You can have data sets that are built for all kinds of different workloads very, very trivially and easily. And like I said, that's some of that documentation that we'll
so we're going to get that out. Yeah, we want to share this with this whole world.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people in the HomeLabs world, of course, do this stuff at work. So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we'll be moving it to and from work. We're going to move our stuff out of enterprise into HomeLab, and then other people do that, and we'll all be a little richer for it.
Yep. And now you can see what it's doing is it's running random 4K. So whereas the first two tests were using a large block size, these ones are using 4 kilobyte. So while the number will be smaller, your IOPS, or your in and out operations per second, are going to be higher than the 1 meg.
So Mitch, we just ran everything, and I'm looking at that and I'm going, wow, we're 1185 megabytes
Yeah, exactly.
per second.
Yep.
And at 1176, so we're darn near saturating that line when we're reading from our HL15,
Yep, exactly. And we're just over a gigabyte even on the right. So.
On going back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what we've shown here is that we got a pretty regular, ordinary, decent Windows workstation, out of the box Windows Pro.
Yep.
We have unmanaged, $600 a switch, Netgear switch, 10 gigabit switch.
Yep.
With a couple of very ordinary old cables we just plucked from somewhere, various colors and whatever else, and our new HL15, and that we are operating data transfer speeds that are well in excess of double an internal SATA SSD.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Very cool.
Not hard to do, and again, you said if you wish to do multi-channel SMB,
We could double that.
Yeah, we can.
Especially if we had two 10 gigabit clients, we could have them both saturating. So.
Yeah. And we're showing what we here call single client transfer.
You got it. Yep.
So people say single thread and whatever else, but it's single client transfer.
Exactly.
It's one file
Yep.
coming from
Workstation, a client.
from workstation
Yep.
through a network to one client.
You got
And it's
it.
very specific.
Yep.
This baby.
Yep.
So let's just do a little speed calc just because I love doing this stuff. There's 15 hard drives
Yes.
times 200 megabytes each, so
Yep.
3,000 megabytes
Yes.
is what this should be able to push out.
Without any bottlenecks in the way, just the hard drives themselves can do it.
And then we're bottlenecked because we only have two 10 gigabit
Yep,
ports.
you got it.
So so it should be 2,000 that we should be able, it's 2,400 or whatever else
Correct, yeah.
that we can move. And in your experience, can we saturate 2 lines out of one of these things?
Absolutely, especially like I said, with ZFS's ARC and its caching, it can do that very, very regularly. And even with the hard drives, as long as the workload is a very sequential write or read, yeah, even 2 clients, no problem.
So that's what you bought when you got one of these things.
Yep.
So, last part of our video, what I want to do is I want to show what that means because we can talk about this stuff in the abstract. So let's talk about something that lots of people do at home. They'll edit videos.
Yep. Absolutely.
Thank God they do. They make great videos on topics like this,
Yep,
right?
yep.
And so I look at that and I think of, let's go back to our enterprise side.
Yes.
You have lots of video editing customers, correct?
Yes, very, very much so.
That range from big and sophisticated to small.
Yeah, we've got the single
people.
person filmmakers all the way up to massive Hollywood studios. So we've got that whole range covered.
We've got that covered. And but there's one thing we talk about many a time in here is that with our video editing, and I love to help the world change this, workflow. Yeah. The standard for most video editing
is editing locally.
It's editing locally, and most of it's on an internal SATA.
Or NVMe for the
and now NVMe and for the high-end guys, because NVMe space is still expensive.
Yep.
And so what it means, and again, we're talking implications of being able to do data transfers like this. So what it means is that somebody to edit a video project, step 1, download the project. Yeah. Which usually means if you do an 8K video and got all kinds of it, it means start your transfer, walk away, get a cup of coffee, go talk to somebody, lose productivity.
Yeah.
Hey,
and there's the unseen things of like, hey, what if multiple people are working on a project? Now you have to wait for this user to finish doing what he's doing, upload it back onto the storage so then the next user can do something.
Yep. Right. So once you got that down, you got that synchronization.
Exactly.
Perfect. And then we edit. Editing off an internal SATA SSD as the standard. NVMe is only better than that. Yes. So as the standard, it's a good experience. We got Chris sitting over here who does most of our video editing. I think he's going to come in and help us in this tail end of this video. And Chris, it's totally good standard. Chris doesn't actually edit off one of those, but he knows that it works fine.
He does edit locally though, so like he's used to the very fast performance. So if we can convince him of using this and he sees that it's just as good or better, then we know we're doing something right here.
Yep.
And we're, you mentioned the SATA SSD being the status quo, and we've even got a SATA SSD in here, and we could show that as a comparison, but we're so convinced that the feel of video editing off of one of these, once you ingest the video in and you're working off of it, is just as good as even NVMe, that we're not going to show the SATA, we'll show the NVMe.
Just as good as NVMe.
Yep.
And by the time you get that internal SATA, it's pretty good anyway, but it's actually better than internal SATA.
Yeah, exactly. Like the feel, and that's really what the video editors care about, right? You tell a video editor it could do 10 gigabits, they're like, okay, that doesn't really mean much to me, right? I want to know when I move that timeline, does it catch up? Is it instant? Is the audio playing? Can I split it and it just goes instantly? Does the video come out, right? Those are the things that matter to the video editor, and that's what we're going to show what we can do.
So anyway, the experience, like, why don't we, I just love surrounding myself with people who know what they're doing, Mitch.
Exactly.
That's why you're here.
I'm not a video editor,
but you're not a video editor, and we happen to have Chris McGean here, who does, he's our head video guy around here at 45 Drives. Absolutely. And is really, really good at this. So why don't we invite you, Chris, come on out from your comfort zone in there behind the camera and come on out in front of the camera. Here we are.
In the heavies.
Calling in the heavies.
Right, let's go.
Right.
So yeah, we've got Adobe Premiere here, something I'm sure you're very familiar with.
Yep.
But I think what would be really cool to do is for us to load up one of our big video projects. What's the one we talked about that you said you have there?
Yep, so we have a 60 gigabyte project file here. It's our old clustered Steam Decks video that we did.
Okay, yep.
If you haven't checked it out yet, you should really
that was
should.
fun.
So a 60 gigabyte project file exported from a previous project. It's got all the assets, all the graphics, all the primary A, primary B, B-roll, and everything in there.
Yep.
So everything that was in that project is exported into this file. Right?
And
So Chris, and before you start, you know this file well. This is, you worked on it, you edited this thing.
Yep.
Very, very familiar.
Yep.
And you know what it's like. So, let me ask you a hypothetical question, just picking your brain here, because you probably haven't done this for 100 years. Mm-hmm. If you had a workstation with a single mechanical drive, something you really wouldn't edit, or 1 gigabit, 60 gigabyte project would be painful, would it not?
Oh, the importing. I mean, you're gonna wait for all the files to have to import, and there's no way you're gonna be able to work on it immediately. That's for sure, because everything has to get imported in, and then scrubbing. You're gonna have to wait a little bit for everything to get imported in there. So I'd be surprised if you did it on a single mechanical if you wouldn't be waiting 5 minutes before you get to work on your project.
So Chris, another scenario, let's say when we're going to do this, you're going to show us how it opens off an NVMe after.
Yep.
And but in that case, you'd have to pull it down. Well, we got you in a 1 gigabit pipe, right? And that's going to take 60 gigabytes down a 1 gigabit pipe. Your quick cup of coffee.
Yeah. Usually it's an import. You'll get a cup of coffee, and then come back, find out when it imported, and then before I even get to start scrubbing, I could probably go leave and get another coffee if I finish the first one. So, yeah, it's a little bit of wait time for sure.
Just getting up and down the pipe.
Yeah, but I've just normally adapted my schedule according to what I'm able to do. So now I'm interested to see if I'm able to speed that process up a little bit.
Okay, so let's do the following. Let's get at this. So video editing, and it's the open is the big thing. Well, let's open, and then let's look at, hunting around, looking at some clips, and just show us some editing things. Absolutely. And it's all about not having a pause, right?
Yep.
So we come in here, it's first thing in the morning. You already got your coffee. Let's open up your project off of our new HL15.
All right. So now we're going to load it in, and we're going to see how it feels.
Yep.
Magic moment. Here we come.
Go. Wow.
Okay.
That was quick.
Okay. Whoa.
No problem scrubbing immediately.
We can hear our hard drives hard at work over there.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what you want to see.
Yeah, I don't know if we're catching the video, but there's a deep grumble when you got 15 hard drives. Not that hard drives are loud, but it's.
It's a feeling. You can feel it even.
Yeah, look at that. You can start editing off the source files.
It doesn't look like we're dropping any frames or anything here.
No, I'm going to move that over here. You can play it instantly. Look at that. Cool.
Yeah, we got audio playing there through.
Yeah, audio's playing too. There's you walking. That's cool. I didn't need to get up and make any drink at that point in time. That's cool.
Yeah, you know what? That is so cool. You have not had to download the thing to a local drive. You're not going to have to upload it after. You just open the darn thing and it's instant. It's really, the experience on that is really phenomenal. And, and as we said, we know the industry, the video editing industry. An awful lot of places, I'd say the majority of them have a workflow where they download work and then upload again. And then, just thinking, I always look at uploading and I go, like filing is up there with Documentation. Mitch, can you document that project you just
Yeah.
did?
No, I like to delegate
joy.
that one.
Yeah, delegate that one. Yeah, it's quite miserable.
Yeah.
So we're leaving that all behind.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. No, exactly. It's just going to make it so much more efficient for people.
I mean, you're
it's-
saving on average about 10 to 15 minutes per project. You
Yep.
exponentially, you work on multiple projects per day, you're
Exactly.
saving time there. So
You save time, and the big one, it's irritation.
Yeah,
Like when you're
irritation.
dumping irritation, oh, it's just so nice, isn't it?
Yeah, like I said, people say, "Oh, I get paid by the hour," but do 2 hours of documentation, busy work versus something you really enjoy doing, and
Yeah.
it's it's night and day.
exactly.
Okay, so folks, there's that experience. Silky smooth, quite amazing.
Yep.
10 gigabit, $500-600 switch.
Yep.
Our HL15, full of 15 drives. Non-exotic workstation, Adobe Premiere.
Oh, yeah,
And we just showed something really cool. Let's do one more thing, just for reference.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, and this is a good experience too, but we're going to take the same project, located elsewhere, and on our internal NVMe, and let's open it up, and we'll just compare those. The almost perfect experience opening up. Let's see what it's like in an internal NVMe.
Yeah, exactly.
And remembering that has a download and a coffee, and then
And
filing and uploading coffee.
Exactly.
So,
Yep. So we're going off of our D drive here, which is our internal Samsung SSD. So let's
So
go.
what's this project?
and what is it? It's a Samsung. The Evo.
Yeah, I believe it's an Evo 860, something like that, 860, 870. But yeah,
Good-
so
good
really good
NVMEs.
consumer NVMe that you'd
Yep.
expect in this type of field.
Yeah.
So let's do the import.
Very close, very fast, just like the hard drives.
Yeah, absolutely. Same thing. Scrub immediately.
Yep.
Start working on source files immediately. Look at that. Cut this up even.
So drawing a conclusion from that, you can look at this thing, 10 gigabit, tuned almost out of the box tuning, and you essentially have a multi terabyte NVMe kicking there from an experience point of view, don't you?
For this workload, absolutely.
It's
yeah.
not identical; they're different beasts. We know that, but for this workload, yeah.
It's a great analogy. And then I guess the last thing I would say is you made a great point there is mostly no tuning. And like I said earlier in the video, you get about 90% with very, very little tuning. For the people that are interested and say, how did we exactly set this up and all the tweaks that I made, we'll leave something in the description down below if you want to read how we set this up and any of the tunings that we did. So that'll be for you guys that want to tinker and tweak.
And and just before we end up, what's the date today? Anybody know the date today? Or do we have to look at our phones?
Oh, no, the 13th.
The computer,
There it is.
yep. So, so we're looking at that. It's 13th October, and we're, these things are going to ship
Yes.
very, very shortly.
very
few more components are waiting to come in from our subs
Suppliers, yep.
and our suppliers, and they're going to be shipping pretty soon. So all the people who have pre-orders
exciting
will be in
times.
contact with you pretty soon,
Yep.
and can't wait to get these out. And we have pretty much there in our final graphics things, which look really
Yeah,
awesome.
exactly.
Yeah.
I can't wait to show off the final product.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So that's it, Chris. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much.
having me.
Mitch, thanks for the expertise as always and for
Anytime.
allowing me to be here, even though I'm kind of like, I don't know. I have fun. So,
Yeah, that's right. We all do.
yeah. Hey.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.